one of the things that I do with my relationship with Nurse Chick is like we try to have this dynamic where there's like sort of we have gender roles in the house, right? She sort of takes care of all the chores around the house when she comes and stays here. Like she does all the laundry, she does all the dishes, she keeps things tidy and all that kind of stuff. And then like I do stuff like I take out the trash, I put up the Christmas lights outside and, whatever, take care of maintenance type things. But every once in a while, the way Nurse Chick will shit test me is she'll grab the trash can or she'll grab the trash out of the kitchen trash and start walking out towards the door. Right. And so when I see her do that, I go, no, no, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? And I'll go and grab the trash can. I won't let her take it out. Right. But that's sort of like, that's her little shit test. That's a little shit test thing that Nurse Chick does. See if she can get away with it. Right. And if I let her do that enough, if I let her start taking the trash out enough, she's going to stop trusting my ability to lead this relationship. Right. It's that simple, and it sounds so stupid on paper, but that's how the dynamic ends up working, right? So you have to always be mindful of that stuff. Like even better is if I happen to notice that the trash can's full, but if she's in there cooking, and she's the one filling up the trash can, she's more than likely going to notice that the trash can is getting full before I notice it. And so instead of going, "Hey, hon, can you take out the trash?" she just starts walking towards the door, and then I catch her and slap her on the ass. You see, that's how that works. So instead of being the first officer, so her nagging, so what she ends up doing is nagging, right? Nagging and bitching and moaning and complaining. And a lot of guys, they sort of grew up with this, right? They end up like we learn relationship dynamics from our parents. So if you grew up in a relationship or you grew up and your parents had the relationship where your mom was just nagging dad all the time, that seems normal. Right? That's just how life is. You're married long enough that wives just get irritable and nicky and naggy and bitchy, and that's just what they do, right? That's normal. It's not normal. It's a fucking warning sign. It's a warning. It's like a red light blinking here saying, hey, you're not doing what you need to do in a relationship. All right. It's not even about what she's saying. It's not even about what she says that you're not doing. It's just the fact that she's nagging needs to be a warning sign for you that, oh shit, I'm getting complacent again, aren't I? I'm getting complacent, right? So her nagging is an expression of her frustration and unmet needs for security and trust in your leadership as the captain. She's starting to not trust you. This is the warning, right? So Corey Wayne has an article on this. If you read How to Be a 3% Man multiple times, he says, Google Corey Wayne, beware the bitchy woman, right? Well, that's what he's talking about. It's a warning sign, right? So from his perspective, right? This is the guy's perspective. What's the problem from his perspective? Well, he ends up feeling unappreciated for his efforts and confused about why his gestures to help aren't enough, right? Because what tends to happen is like you fucked up so much that now when you do something, now she scrutinizes how you do it. And now nothing you do is good enough, right? One way that my now ex-wife used to do this sort of thing was like she got to a place where and I was totally a type 1 captain. I was totally a type 1 captain. That's why like I often say if I knew all this stuff back then, I could have turned the dynamic around easily, right? I just didn't even know. Like you don't know what you don't know. Well, one of the things that she would do, and I used to get so pissed at her about it, instead of treating it like the shit test it was like, let's say we had a party, right? And we're inviting all these people over, and she wants to cut up watermelons so that people can have like bites of watermelons. Well, she would task me with cutting up watermelons, and I would just cut it however the fuck I wanted to cut it. And then she would bitch at me that I didn't cut it in the right cubes or squares or whatever. Like she had a specific way of doing it. And so she would bitch at me about the way I was doing it, right? Like raise your hand or drop a comment, drop a comment in the chat if you've ever experienced that, where like she asks you to do something, you do it, however, because she doesn't give you specific instructions, and then she complains about how you do it. That was my ex-wife, right? And so if I knew then what I knew now, I would have handled it like a shit test, And I would have been like, no, no, trust me, these shapes are way more aerodynamic. Just not taking what she said seriously instead of getting all pissed off and go, fine, fuck you, you do it. Right. Like that's how I handled it, with just anger. And you don't do that. You just treat it like it's, whatever. It's no big deal. But you end up feeling unappreciated, like you like can't win theater. Like no matter what you do is not good enough. And so what tends to happen is a guy in this role, he's going to fall into a victim mindset. And then he's going to start believing that she is unreasonably critical or controlling, right? When she's not. It's just that you haven't been leading this whole time. You haven't been setting the tone. You haven't been handling shit tests this whole time. And so now she feels insecure in the relationship. And now she starts nagging and bitching a lot, right? So here's some key points, right? Resentment grows on both sides, right? You hate her for nagging you so much. She hates you for not leading. And then the intimacy starts drying up, right? Intimacy dies. Communication becomes adversarial. Like when you do talk to her, you're immediately expecting a fight. And when you're expecting a fight, you basically end up starting a fight inadvertently. You start focusing on small issues while avoiding the underlying problem, which is you're not setting the tone and leading. You're not being the captain of the ship. And his frame of reference is dominated by her criticism, further eroding his confidence and ability to lead. Right. So now you've basically fallen into her frame, and you think that no matter what you do is you can't do anything right. Why even try? And which makes you further fall more into complacency. You see, ends up being a negative feedback loop that just spirals downward. Fucking terrible. Terrible, I say. Guys, if you need help reversing this dynamic, I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you go to call.fixdeadbedrooms.com, there's a whole plan to get through this and start changing that dynamic back around in your relationship for the positive. It's just that most guys don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. I had a call on Saturday with one of my clients, and he's read all these books. He's read Dread. He's read Athol Kay's, Married Man Sex Life Primer. He's read No More Mr. Nice Guy. He's read all this stuff. He's like, I understood the concepts. I just know how to apply it until I started working with you as a coach. Because sometimes you need that. You need that third party sort of observer perspective, looking at what's going on in the relationship and go, this is how you apply that, right? That one part, that one book, this applies here. Do you see that? Okay, right. Some guys need that, and that's okay, right? That's okay. If that's you, if you've been reading the books for years and you haven't been able to move the needle in your relationship, book a free call with me, all right? Go to call.fixdeadbedrooms.com. Don't leave a whole other fucking year go by and, where you end up divorced in 2025. Like, let's fucking fix this now. All right. All right, guys. So what's the solution? Like I said at the beginning, this dynamic, the type 1 captain, is the easiest dynamic to fix. So step 1, sobering up. You can't be the drunken captain anymore. You got to sober up, right? So you got to start accepting responsibility for the leadership vacuum that you've created, right? Own that shit. And this is okay. This is where like good communication is helpful in this dynamic, where you express to your wife like, hey, I realize that I haven't been doing my job well as a husband. That ends today. I'm going to fix that today, right? It's okay to express that to her. Now she might, double down and start bitching at you more and stuff like that, but that's just treat it like a shit test and don't take it seriously and just be like, yeah, no, you make a good point, right? Just like start fogging her a little bit. But you've got to own that shit. Extreme ownership, right? You got to stop seeking validation from her through chores or small acts and focus on structural improvements in your life. Okay. So a lot of guys, what they end up doing to try to fix the dynamic in their marriage is they start doing shit like the love languages and go, the reason why I'm not, she doesn't look at me as a captain is because I'm not taking the trash out. Like it's not the trash necessarily. It's more than that. It's like, it's more of the whole leadership dynamic. She's just bitching about the trash. You understand? but the trash is one way to start, right? Like the small areas of leading. One thing that I tell guys to do is see a lot of guys, what they end up doing when it comes to like the chore play and the love languages, right? Where it's like the wife says, oh, if you help me around the house more, I'd put out more, which is bullshit. What they end up doing is they do the dishes, they do the laundry, they take the trash out because they expect sex afterwards, like as a reward, like a tit for tat. That's what we call a covert contract. You can't do that, right? But if you see something needs to be done around the house, don't wait for your wife to tell you to do it. Fucking go do it. You know what I mean? And then we want to start with the map, right? The male action plan. So that the concept of the map, which I talk about extensively in my new book, I talk about, not that one. In Get Her to Fuck You Again, I talk about the map, right? The map comes from Athol K's Married Man's Sex Life Primer. Full credit goes to Athol K for that. But the map is a proven method of changing the dynamic in your relationship, right? So what is the map? The map, the male action plan is sort of, if you look at it simply, it's a way for you to improve your muscles, money, game, and frame, right? The core four, right? So you want to start improving in all these areas, you know? And so one of the first things that we have guys do is work on your physical fitness, right? Hit the gym and focus on becoming physically attractive again, right? And the big reason why we focus on physical fitness, one is because once you get your physically fit and you become more physically attractive, you know, that like you just feel good, right? You have more confidence when you're in better shape. But two, it's one of the things that you can start really seeing changes in immediately. And a lot of guys are doing this stuff because they're trying to see changes in their wife's behavior. You can't, it's hard to measure that sometimes, right? But it's real easy to measure whether you're losing weight or not when you weigh in once a week, right? So it's easy to get quick wins by working on your physical health and start losing weight, start getting back in shape, right? And then also your wife will start noticing you being in better shape. A part of the map too is your career focus, right? Build confidence and value by excelling in your work, making more money. That's why I told my one client who said that he sort of got comfortable in his career and his wife's bitching at him about not making as much money as her, that he needs to give a shit about your career again. And if you don't like the career you're in, maybe it's time to start looking for a career change, you know? Parenting, you know, being an involved father, showing leadership in family matters, like all these things are good, right? Don't just leave all this kind of stuff up to your wife. Like take the leadership role and being a good dad too. Okay. There's lots of areas here that you can work on, but it's really, if you think about it, you're working on your core four, right? Muscles, money, game, and frame. You also want to start working on setting your boundaries, right? And enforce healthy boundaries in the relationship. So for instance, if she criticizes your efforts, calmly acknowledge her feelings, but don't react emotionally or retreat, right? This is where fogging comes into play, right? Sometimes when your wife's bitching, she has a point. You know, not everything ends up happening to be a fucking power dynamic in your relationship. I'm going through Dread again. I'm listening to it on Audible. There's a case study in there where this guy was changing the dynamic around his relationship, and his wife was like really enthusiastically wanting to fuck again. And he got to a point where like she's all, you know, they're all making out, they're all doing this kind of stuff, and she really wants to fuck, right? And he goes, well, he's like, well, maybe if you go put on those sexy stockings that I like. And so she goes upstairs and puts on the sexy stockings and comes down, and she's ready to give this guy like a crazy sexy blowjob. But then when he starts like touching her breasts and all, you know, all the fun stuff that you end up doing, his hands were cold. And so she starts bitching that his hands are cold. And so he thought that was a power dynamic thing. And he's like, well, I'm not warming up my hands because she told me to. And then I don't want to be a beta for doing what she tells me to do. And then he ends up ruining the whole thing and starts a big fucking fight. And he goes, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to go play video games. It's like, dude, not everything has to be not everything's a power dynamic. Sometimes she has a point. If your hands are fucking cold and she's trying to give you a blowjob, like warm your hands up a little bit. Okay. It's not fucking rocket science.
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.